What's up, Lost Boys? Here we are for our fantasy football recap video. This is going to be for week 13, and it was a pretty crazy week. So let's get right into it. This week in fantasy football, it was pretty wild when it comes to the standings. We had the top five guys, every one of them except for Josh lost, and the top five, bottom five guys, everyone except for Jace won. So everyone that was fighting for the playoffs, that was trying to make that late season push, got the win that they needed. Well, and then everyone that was in the top five trying to hold on to their playoff spot or trying to get that last inch, like Justin, they all lost. So we have 2 more weeks left in the league, which is crazy to think. And anything can happen. Now, after these results, one thing is for certain: Josh has clinched the playoffs. We have our first playoff clinch. He took over first place this week. He's on a 5-game win streak. He took over the point league. So his team's doing pretty good. We're going to get into the rest of the teams in the league, but congrats to Josh. He has clinched the playoffs. So he's the first one in. After that, the next 3 spots are up for grabs. So let's get into the results. Speaking of Josh, it was our game of the week. It was Josh versus Matt. I had mentioned that I thought the winner of this game would clinch the playoffs, and based on the results of the other games, that was correct. Josh won. Kind of took it to Matt. It was kind of a bad beat for Matt. He put up 166 points. It was the 4th most in the week. It was a good amount of points. Josh just put up 189. So his team did really well. His quarterbacks really showed up. He actually got touchdowns this week from his team. Josh Allen had an insane week. He threw a touchdown, ran a touchdown, caught a touchdown from himself after the lateral. Jaden Daniels started off hot. Terry McLaurin got 2 touchdowns. Just in general, it was a really good week for Josh. Matt's team did look pretty good as well. Like I said, he did score a lot of points. Taysom Hill did get hurt. He does have Njoku on his bench. That would have gave him 20 more points. It wouldn't have been the difference in the week, but it still would have helped him. But the big thing for Matt is his quarterbacks seem to be back. Jordan Love is back. He does pretty good. And now Tua is back. And Tua had his best game of the year this year. Matt's been getting solid contributions from JSN, which is really big for him. But Matt's core strength of his team is Saquon. He's been the best fantasy player this year. And he continued it this week. He almost got him 20 points. He's been rocking. If Matt can get into the playoffs, Saquon is the most scary guy in the playoffs, and Matt has him. So, but Matt does fall. Next game, the other big game that I was waiting to see the outcome was Tim versus Ryan. Tim is clinging to a playoff spot. I feel like he's been clinging to it for 3 weeks. He's lost 2 in a row. He hasn't really been getting the vibes going. Ryan, on the other hand, it shows you how big that loss was 2 weeks ago when Ryan lost to Justin, or else he could be in that spot instead of Tim. With Tim, it's the same situation it's been all year. His two quarterbacks has been his weakness. Brock Purdy got him 2 points. Drake May all of a sudden looks like his best quarterback. Who would have thought? Tim's strength is his running backs. Gibbs, once again, usually has a great game. This week, only 9. I mean, it was kind of frustrating, the usage of Gibbs. He got a lot of yards. He was their best player, but they didn't give him the touchdowns. A-Chain did really good, and Mixon did really good. Tim's strength is his running backs, and he does have JJ, but JJ he's been off this year. The Vikings defense has been really good, and they haven't needed to throw it to him. So Tim takes the L. Ryan, on the other hand, is making this crazy late season push. I talked about Ryan after the draft, how he had the worst team. I talked about Ryan in the middle of the season, how he had the worst team, and he just keeps showing me, yes, was his draft awful? So bad. But Ryan is good at fantasy football. He shows it year in, he shows it year out, and he's shown it again this year. He's took turds and made it into turd pie. That's what he's done with his team this year. Picks up Jerry Jeudy, goes off for 36 points. Tracy Jr., these are guys that no one wanted, or rookies, and Ryan's starting them. He still has Jamar Chase, who's probably the best fantasy wide receiver asset right now. He picks up Chase Brown after Zach Moss gets injury. Chase Brown's looking like a top 5 fantasy running back. Ryan with a top 5 fantasy running back, top 3 fantasy wide receiver. That's what you need in the playoffs. That's what puts you over the edge. So Ryan seems to be getting these contributions from a lot of different guys every week, and he's winning games. He's making that late season push. He's 6-7 right now, and he takes Tim down. Tim still is ahead of him. We'll go over the standings at the end, but Ryan gets the big win. Speaking of big win, it's a little too late for Patty, but he does take down our first place guy, Denny. Denny, all of a sudden, love you. Have a good day. Denny all of a sudden has lost 2 in a row, which is crazy because he has the best team in the league, and he's had the best team in the league all year. But there are chinks in the armor that are starting to pop up, which is a little concerning. Cooper Kupp is not getting fed the ball. Puka's getting fed the ball. CeeDee Lamb, who is the man, carried Cass to a Super Bowl last year, now is getting thrown the ball by Cooper Rush. That's not what you need for CeeDee Lamb's production. Horse Turd Harris, he always does good, got him 13 points. James Cook did pretty well. Brian Robinson Jr. is back healthy is what it seems. So then he's got his running backs. But some of his guys that he's been getting huge games from this year, they're not necessarily giving that. And his quarterbacks, don't get me wrong, they're really, really good in real life. But sometimes Goff doesn't need to throw a lot with that Lions team. They run a lot. Same with Herbert. So Denny's team has this insane ceiling because of his talent, but his quarterbacks, if the Chargers and Lions win, they may not have to throw a lot, which is not good for fantasy. On the flip side, Pat, his team's peaking just a little too late. I mean, he did really well. He put up 166 points, and that's with a CMC dud with 7. Anthony Richardson is the guy that he drafted. Lamar is the guy that he drafted. Obviously, he has these 2 running quarterbacks, and they're doing really well for him. I mean, Anthony Richardson had a pretty shitty game overall, but it doesn't matter when you get rushing yards and a rushing touchdown from your quarterback. T. Higgins is finally back healthy. David Montgomery's been solid all year for him, and Trey McBride is the second best fantasy tight end right now going. Juice. But Pat's team looked good this week. It's just unfortunate. He's got to be annoyed because his team is talented. They just had such a bad start to the season, and unfortunately, he's not officially eliminated. He's not officially eliminated, so it's not over yet, but it's going to be really, really hard for him to make the playoffs. Speaking of not officially eliminated, our Super Bowl champ, I mentioned it last week. I didn't want to say anything. I don't want to say anything permanent because it's Cass. I mentioned Ryan being awesome at fantasy. Cass is awesome at fantasy. He's won a lot of Super Bowls. He always makes it into the playoffs. And he gets a big win this week. He takes down Justin. Justin needed the win this week. He had to win. And he fell short. Cass's team looked really good. I mean, this is the team that we thought he was going to have all year. His quarterbacks didn't even do that well. But Mike Evans is back. Well, when Mike Evans plays, he does really good. Tyreek had one of his better games of the year. Mark Andrews had a really good game. Kyron Williams had a solid game. So Cass's team, he had a lot of teens this week, which elevated him to 159 points. But the bigger story of this game was Justin's team no showing. 125 points is not what you need in fantasy. It's not going to get you any victories. And Chubba Bubba Bubba is coming back down to earth. He's been carrying Justin all year. It's been a great pick, but with Jonathan Brooks off of IR, they're trying to get their rookie involved. Bubba 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 with a huge fumble cost the Panthers the game. George Kittle in that snowstorm, 1 point, no-showed. He's been doing awesome for Justin. He didn't have anyone break out. I mean, his best player is going to be his kicker. Speaking of kicker, this was the battle of the kickers, Boswell versus Fairbairn. The Cass special is what we like to call it. But Justin takes the L. He has to get back in the win column this week. But it was a big loss. Cass stays alive. And speaking of staying alive, the titties are getting sucked. Cal takes down Jace in an ass whipping, 163 to 105. I mean, my God. We'll start with Cal on this one. Caleb Williams, best game of the year, 26 points, 3 passing touchdowns. He even had some rushing yards. CJ Stroud, he still is not doing great, which is unfortunate. You play the Jags, you're supposed to own the Jags. They did not. It's a lot of Joe Mixon this year, which has got to be pissing Cal off. But Nico's back, which is big for him. 16 points without a touchdown. It's really good. Pickens is looking like a bona fide star. Russell Wilson's feeding him the ball. Marv gets a touchdown. Bijan is the man. Bijan is awesome. And then Ladd, as long as Ladd stays healthy, he's the #1 receiving option by far on the Chargers. So Cal's receivers look sneaky awesome. And if he can sneak into the playoffs with Stroud, with Caleb Williams, and Bijan, who in my opinion is a top 3 running back right now, that's really, really sneaky. That flex spot of his is the only weak point. He has Kareem Hunt there now. He's got to find something else to put there. Jace, he's not technically eliminated, but he's pretty much eliminated. His boys just didn't show up this week. Jalen Hurts, Geno Smith, they did okay, but the rest of his team, I mean, I don't even think they had 1 touchdown. Jace's team had 1 touchdown outside of his quarterbacks. That's not going to happen. Actually 2 touchdowns. But, I mean, his team just didn't do good. They didn't have a lot of yards. They didn't have a lot of touchdowns. It's unfortunate. Devontae Smith has been hurt for 5,000 years. Amon-Ra has been okay. Josh Jacobs has been the biggest bright spot of his team all year. But, unfortunately, Jace takes a huge L. And we'll see what he can do the next couple weeks. That's all the games from this past week. We're going to look at the standings real quick. Like I mentioned, Josh is in first place at 9-4. He has clinched. He has won 5 in a row. After that, we have a logjam. It's the same 3 teams that it's been for a while, and the same 4 teams have been at the top 4. They just keep pivoting spots for the last 5 weeks. Denny's in second, tied with Matt. They're both 8-5. Denny's ahead by about 45 points. So Denny has a somewhat decent cushion over Matt right now. Then in 4th place is the big one. This is the big one, guys, because I keep telling you these people aren't eliminated. These people are eliminated. It's because this 4th place, Tim. He's fallen to 7-6. He's still a game ahead of everyone. He still has a decent amount of points. But now we're talking record-wise, and he is people are nipping on his heels right now. Those people are Justin. Those people are Ryan. Those people are Cal. I mean, 3 teams are right behind Tim, and he needs to keep winning. Now, he has all those teams beat by points, and he has some of them beat by a pretty good margin, but it's fantasy. You never know what can happen. Tim needs to get off that slide. I mentioned those other teams, Justin, Ryan, and Cal. Cal and Ryan get big dubs. Justin takes an L this week, but, you know, this is fantasy. Anything changes. And then after that, Pat, 5-8. Cass, 5-8. Jace, 5-8. Now, because Tim is 7-6, they're only 2 games out, okay? So because they're 2 games out, we have two weeks left, guys. So theoretically, literally, every team in the league is still alive for that 4th and final playoff spot. Anything can happen. Everyone should be balls to the wall. Obviously, everyone's trying to win every single week, but man, is it really, really tight. I love it this year. It's awesome. Now we're going to look at the huge Week 14, because Week 14 will be where some teams are eliminated based on some results. And the biggest result that we're going to see is Tim's game. If Tim wins, just by him winning, it eliminates a few of those guys at the bottom. Just if Tim wins, Jace is gone. Cass is gone, Pat's gone. So everyone's rooting against Tim right now in the entire league. And who does Tim play? Titty Sucker, Cal. Game of the week by far. Tim has to win. Cal is right behind him in the standings. Everyone's wanting Tim to lose. Another big thing to start off talking about this week is there's a billion teams on buys. I mean, huge fantasy teams. Texans, Ravens, Washington. So many fantasy players are on bye, and it's going to affect everyone. Cal loses Stroud. Cal loses Nico. Tim loses Bateman. Tim loses Joe Mixon. So you have a lot of these guys on bye. Unfortunately, in this specific matchup, it hurts Cal more. Cal, I don't know. We'll see. I hope, obviously I hope you can pull it out just to make the league more interesting. But it's going to be really, really tough for Cal to take the dub in this one without Stroud. Tim's got some stuff to fill in his roster like everyone does this week. But huge matchup for Tim and Cal. Next matchup we're going to go with week. Josh has already clinched. Josh has a lot of buys, but huge for Justin. Justin is in that spot kind of like Cal is. He's 6-7. He's right behind Tim. He has to win. Now, Justin got really fortunate this week. If you're going to play Josh, who's won 5 in a row, this is the week, okay? He has 5 guys on bye week. Sutton, Terry Carey, Jaden Daniels, Jordan Mason's hurt, Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, half his team's hurt, are on bye this week. Josh Downs, I mean, who knows? So Justin picked a really, really good week to play Josh. He's got some players that are not on bye. Like Justin's the one team that doesn't seem to be affected by this crazy bye week. He might have a chance to get a huge victory, keep his season alive. Next, we got monster game. Normally, this would be the game of the week. Normally it would, but those other games, there's teams that are pretty much win or go home. These two teams are not that. They are win and in, but they're not win, lose or go home. It's Denny and Matt, both 8-5, both fighting for a playoff spot right now. Both have really, really strong teams. Denny's team is on a little bit of a slide. Matt did just take an L to Josh, but his team looks really, really good. Denny and Matt, like I said, Matt is getting hit way harder than Denny by this bye week. I think Denny has a strong chance this week to get back into the win column, which will put Matt one more L and put him right on the brink of getting eliminated from the playoffs. So really, really huge game. I can't wait to see what happens there. Our next game, Ryan versus Cass. This is huge, guys. Ryan making that late season push, trying to squeak into the playoffs. Cass, our Super Bowl champion. The guy's a machine. He's always ready. He's always in the playoffs. He is one loss away or one Tim win away from being eliminated. Cass's team seems to be peaking at the right time. Ryan's team seems to be peaking at the right time. We'll see. But Cass loses some guys on bye. He loses his kicker. He loses his tight end. Ryan, on the other hand, doesn't really lose many guys on bye this week. So it's going to be tough for Cass to pull out a victory. But Cass's team is looking good. Ryan's team's looking really good. I can't wait for this matchup. And then last but definitely not least, since everyone's still, you have Pat, you have Jace. This one's pretty straightforward. Our 2 last place teams. Winner stays in it. If Tim loses, loser of course is out. We'll see. Pat's team is looking really good right now. Jace's team is looking meh right now. Both guys are getting hit about equally with the bye weeks. So that's going to be about an even edge. In general though, guys, this week in fantasy is by far going to be the most entertaining week in my opinion. Every single game has repercussions. So many teams fighting for that last playoff spot. And maybe the third and the fourth playoff, or the second and the third playoff spot. Like I said, only one spot has been clinched. All 3 of those spots are technically up for grabs, and they're all based around about 7 or 8 different people. So really, really fun week of fantasy coming up, guys. Not only do we have the awesome matchups, but we have a lot of bye weeks that's going to hurt people. There's going to be some weird outcomes this week that we're not used to seeing. Either way, should be fun, guys. Love you guys. Go Chiefs. Go Bears. Talk to you guys soon.